So this has been weighing heavy on my conscience for the better part of 11 years. If anybody that I went to elementary school with is watching this video, I lied. I lied about why I quit football. Now, before I get into the reason why I quit football after just one day of practice, I just want to say this. I want to set up some context for you guys. For those of you who don't know, I'm from Texas. I was raised in Texas throughout all of my schooling years. And if you don't know anything about Texas, just know this. People here love football. People here have this irrational love for football. And it's not just for the Cowboys or for any of the professional or college teams. No. People here love football all the way down to the little league teams, the middle school teams, the high school teams. High school football is extremely competitive out here. I'm not saying that we're the best. I can't speak on that because after this day, I never played football again. I never played organized sports again. But what I can say is this. At my high school, we had this rivalry with this school down the road, maybe a mile or two down the road, in a slightly more affluent area, but we were all middle class nonetheless. But anyways, in the week leading up to our matchup, it was called the Battle of the Axe. In the week leading up to that matchup, every single year, people would be talking absolutely reckless on Twitter. And I remember that was really the real show. The game didn't even matter. It was the trash talk leading up to the game. And I'm talking about people would cross boundaries that if I didn't live in a middle class community, people could have lost their lives over the things that they were saying on Twitter. That's how reckless they were talking. Okay, and I'm saying all of this to say that people take football extremely seriously. Extremely seriously. And this is over a high school game. So hopefully that paints a picture for you. But anyways, back to the story. Now, growing up, I was never into organized sports. All of my friends played organized sports. I've never actually met somebody else that didn't play organized sports growing up, except for me. Now, I don't know if that's just a Texas thing or if that's something that's normal everywhere, but over here, growing up, you're going to play some type of sport. Now, I've always been a very naturally athletic person, as evidenced by my first few videos on this channel. Okay, me dunking, things like that. That wasn't new for me. I was always very athletic compared to my peers. And not only that, but I was athletic without having to train. You see, all of them, they're playing sports. So they're training, they're going to practice. They're training to become faster. Me, the only training that I got was when we played tag at recess. So I was just built like that. Okay, it was one of my gifts. To this day, it is one of my gifts still. But at the time, it was even more prevalent. And my friends definitely took notice of this. Now, I remember at the time, I was a very insecure kid. And I know it seems like I'm all over the place, but it's all going to tie together pretty soon. I was a very insecure kid. And I always took note of the things that I thought brought more popularity to people. And at a very early age, one of the main things that I noticed was that the athletes, particularly the talented athletes, always got more attention than the nobodies like me. Now, like I said, my friends, they all played organized sports. So when they saw that I was athletic, they knew that I was talented at football particularly because I was too short to play basketball. So they knew that I was talented at football just from playing with me as well after school and things like that. So they pressed me. They started pressing me to join the Little League football team. Now, mind you, I had absolutely no desire to play organized football whatsoever. None. Okay, none at all. I don't like structure. I didn't like it then, and I won't like it 10 years from now. I don't like having people yelling at me. I don't like people dictating what I have to do on a day-to-day basis. I just don't like the vibe overall, and I didn't like the competitive aspect of it because I was afraid. But that's besides the point. I let my friends peer pressure me into going to the tryouts one year. So this was the summer going into fifth grade, I believe. The summer going into fifth grade, so I was 10 years old. I remember this day so vividly. It was hot as hell outside. Like I said, I'm from Texas. If you've never been to Texas during the summer, don't. Okay, don't come here during the summer. You're not missing out on anything. I can promise you that. It's hot as hell. That particular day, it was probably 100 or so degrees, but it was the tryouts and I was amped up. Now, at the time, I knew that my main talent that pertained to football was my speed. Before I was known for my leaping ability, I was always known as the fast kid. By this point, I was probably one of, if not the fastest person in my entire school. And I didn't go to a private school, so there were definitely some athletic kids there. So, just trying to set up some context, I was fast. And I remember the one event that I was looking forward to was the 40-yard dash. The 40-yard dash. Now, I remember training for this, man. This was the first time I ever trained for something. I was out running sprints in the alley and things like that. And bro, I was moving. Like I said, I was naturally gifted. So when I started training, I was moving different than these other kids. Now, I remember I watched a couple of my friends do the 40-yard dash at first, and they were running like in the 6s or 7s. Mind you, we're in 4th grade, so they weren't slow by any means. But I knew I was faster than them, so I'm taking mental note. One of them runs a 7.2, one of them runs a 6.7, things like that. So I'm thinking, I can definitely get under a 6. I'm trying to be the fastest person there. Now, I remember this so vividly, man. I get to the line to run the 40, and I was wearing my Kobe's, RIP Kobe. I don't know why I wore Kobe's to a football tryout. I thought they looked cool. I was wearing the Kobe 5s, I believe. I'll put a picture on the screen of the exact ones I was wearing. But I was so amped up that when they said go, I ran out of my shoes. I'm talking about I ran clear out of my shoes. And everybody was laughing and everything, and I was a little bit embarrassed, but I think they got the message that, okay, this dude is this dude is a little bit different. If he's running out of his shoes, he must have some speed on him. So what they told me to do was take my shoes off and run the 40 barefoot. And so I did. And when you're running, especially if you're fast, you don't know if you're running fast or not. You're just running. The reason why I knew that I was moving different is because as soon as I started running, everybody in the crowd, ooh, oh, you could hear people like making those types of noises. I didn't hear people making those noises before for my friends or for anyone else. So I'm like, okay, I'm I'm a little bit different, man. I'm feeling myself at this point. So I'm running. I do the 40. I ran a 5.8. Now I know 5.8 sounds slow as hell because it is, but for a 10-year-old, that's moving. That's moving. And what I later found out was that I was one of the fastest people there. Now, outside of that, I think we had to do a few other trivial things at the tryout. I don't even remember because all I cared about was the 40-yard dash. And maybe a week or two passes by. And the way that the little league that I went to worked was they would call you and tell you what team you got drafted to. So I ended up getting drafted to a team called the Sooners, just like the Oklahoma Sooners, except it was all 10-year-olds. So I'm thinking, great, I'm about to go to practice and I'm going to get a jersey. Now, I failed to mention this earlier in the video, but like I said, I took note of the things that brought people popularity, and I noticed that athletes in particular were popular, but the reason why you knew somebody was an athlete was because they would come to school with their jersey on. Because in Little League, they let you keep the jerseys afterwards. So I always wanted one of those jerseys. I always thought that that would make me cool. That would make me popular or whatever. Even though I wasn't an outcast or anything like that, I just wanted to be one of the cool kids. Now in retrospect, I could have just went down to the mall and bought a jersey, and it wouldn't have made a single difference. But I wanted a jersey that was mine, a jersey that I wore in games. And I was willing to go to great lengths to wear that jersey. So we go to practice, and it's the first day of practice. The very first day of practice. This is probably early August, if not late July. We're coming up on the beginning of the school year, but my point is, it was in the middle of the summer, dead middle of the summer. And like I said, Texas in the summer is no joke. It was hot as hell outside. It had to be at least 105, and that's not accounting for humidity. It was hot. And I remember I got out of the car and I saw all the other kids there, and I felt that air hit me. And I was like, damn, bro, I don't really want to be here right now. I'd rather be at home playing video games or doing something like that. But like I said, man, I just wanted that jersey. So my thought process at this point is, okay, if I could just get my jersey, maybe I don't even have to play in the games. I can just get the jersey and then quit after that. So it's the first practice. We did not get the jerseys. We did not get the jerseys. And not only that, but they had us out there working like we were professional athletes. All of the parents and the coaches are sitting there in the shade in their lawn chairs and shit like that. Meanwhile, us 9 and 10-year-olds are running in 105-degree weather in the middle of the summer, probably at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So the sun is at its peak. It's hot. And not only that, but they're having us run long distance. This was not 40 yards. I don't know how long they had us running, but they said run from here to that tree and back. Overall, it was probably about 200 yards there and back. And I didn't train for distance. I only trained for the 40-yard dash. So I wasn't prepared for this, and I was near the back every single time. And because I was the fastest person on the team, because like I said, I was one of the fastest people at the tryouts, they expected me to be in the front. And even at the age of 10, it genuinely astonished me how they couldn't make the distinction between 40 yards and 200 yards. I couldn't figure out what their logic was behind that and why they thought I was supposed to be in the front. Nonetheless, I ran anyways. Now, halfway through the practice, kids start throwing up. This is when I realized that I had made a big mistake. An absolutely catastrophic mistake. Not only because they were throwing up, but because it seemed normal to everyone. Nobody seemed like they were shaken up by this except for me. When I see somebody throw up, I'm thinking, bro, practice is over. we need to go inside. Like, we need to get away from the heat. But no, they had us keep running. And I was like, bro, I don't know if I can do this. I'm just thinking in my head, I don't know if I can do this anymore. But I didn't want to look weak in front of everyone else. And I'm thinking that I'm going to get my jersey at the end of practice. So I'm like, okay, let me just keep going. And somehow, by some miracle, I get through the practice. Now, during the practice, I forgot to mention this as well. I realized, and the coaches and my teammates realized, that I was actually terrible at the game of football. I couldn't catch, I couldn't throw, I had no type of agility whatsoever. The only skill that I had was the ability to run in a straight line faster than everyone else. That was the only thing I had going for me. So basically, I had no place on the team. But it's Little League, so they didn't have too high of expectations, but they still trained us as if we were professional athletes. Now, the practice probably lasted an hour and a half, something like that. I honestly don't know. To me, it felt like it lasted 8 hours, but your perception of time changes when it's that hot outside. So, the end of practice, this is where I realized, right here, this was the moment that I realized, I can't do this. I'm getting some water, okay? And they had like maybe 5. They had maybe 5 water bottles, and we all had to share them in waterfall. And we could get like 1 or 2 sips of water at a time. Absolutely terrible. And I made sure not to drink from the same water bottle as the kid that threw up earlier. I took a mental note of things like that, but other people seemed like they didn't care. Anyways, I digress. I'm drinking water, and I hear one of the fathers tell their sons. Now, mind you, like I said, the kids are like 9, 10 years old. We're 9 and 10 years old. He tells his son, hey, if you don't do good at the next practice, I'm going to make you run extra after practice. That's when it hit me. These kids aren't here to get that jersey. These kids are here to go to the league. I'm not trying to go to the league. Okay, I have Madden back at home. I can play with all the NFL teams that I want. That's when I realized I have absolutely no place at this practice. And at the end of the practice, we didn't even get our jerseys. I think we had to wait maybe a week or so before we got our jerseys. But I didn't care anymore. I didn't want the jersey. Y'all can keep the jersey. I don't even like maroon anyways. I don't like the Sooners uniforms. They look terrible to me. So I'm doing all of this for a mediocre looking jersey. Just so that all the other kids can think that I'm cool. Now obviously at the age of 21, in retrospect, it sounds idiotic. But that was my 10-year-old logic at the time. So nevertheless, I got home. And I remember that conversation I had with my dad. I don't even think I had to say much of anything to him. I think I just kind of looked at him, and he knew. He knew that it was over. My football dreams were no more. And honestly, I thought he was going to make me keep playing because I think they made him pay around $200 for that. But he actually was cool with it. He didn't even want me to play football. He wanted me to focus on my grades. And in retrospect, I see why. I see why he wanted me to focus on my grades, because the things that they had me doing out there, the things that they had us doing out there, they didn't even make sense. So I ended up quitting football. I think my dad called that same day or the next day, one of the two, to tell them that I would no longer be showing up to the practices, thankfully. And I remember, dude, that next day I woke up and I could barely walk. That was the most sore to this day that I've ever felt in my life. And that day when I woke up and I felt the way that my body felt, mind you, this was a no contact practice. Nobody got tackled. We didn't even have pads. This is just from running, doing burpees, and running routes and things like that. That's when I realized that organized sports are probably not the move for me. And ever since that day, I never played organized sports again. So to all of my friends who played football with me in 5th grade for that one day, I didn't quit because we didn't have health insurance. I quit because they were on some bullshit. I quit because it was 105 degrees and they wanted us to train like professional athletes, even though I didn't want to go to the league. That's why I quit. And I feel so good getting that off of my conscience. I feel like I can just move freely and live my life in peace and harmony and abundance. Oh, and also, all of those coaches, they need jail time. They need jail time for child endangerment, or I don't know, they need jail time for something. Because there is no way that menaces like that should be allowed in the public. Especially that father who told his kid, his 10-year-old kid, that he was going to make him run extra laps after practice. I know it sounded funny and everything, but that was kind of messed up looking back on it. That was really messed up, actually. And I think if I heard a father say that now, I would definitely give him a piece of my mind. But it's not my place at this point because I'm free. I'm free. Do I have a jersey? Absolutely not. I don't. Nor do I care.